And now for something completely machinima.
Tracy Harwood. So I've done a little bit of digging around and I've discovered.
Ricky Grove. Fog comes in on little cat feet.
Phil Rice. This is the best film that I've seen all year and maybe ever.
Damien Valentine. Use the machinima, Luke. Hello, and welcome for another episode of Now for Something Completely Machinima. We've lost Ricky. We tried to find him, but he seems to have disappeared. But we'll keep looking for him, and hopefully he'll be back next week. So I'm joined by Phil Rice and
Hello.
Tracy Howard.
Hello.
This week we're going to be discussing my pick, which is a Skyrim machinima called True Nords. Now, this came about because last month I said I was going to look for Skyrim machinima after we just discussed that sort of documentary about World of Warcraft machinima. And the person who made that had talked about being a big fan of Skyrim in that world. It made me kind of curious what kind of Skyrim machinima exists. But obviously, the game has been out for a good decade or so, and I'm sure people have made things with it. And I think we've seen a couple before that we've looked at, but I wanted to see what was new and fresh. So I found this film called True Nords, and it's a relatively recent one. And what seems to happen is the director has taken dialogue from the NPCs and characters in the game to try and put together a conversation. So all this dialogue is from the game, and they try to make a conversation that would sort of make sense, but it doesn't really. But in my mind, that kind of adds to the humor of it, where it doesn't quite work. And I'm sure that's a deliberate choice, and at least I hope it is, because I was laughing not at the film, but at the way the conversations kind of flowed, and it just the way it worked. And the other thing that impressed me about this film was the cinematic nature of it, because Skyrim's a single player game, and obviously there's a whole mod set, and you can do all kinds of mod things into it. But I don't know how you control multiple characters at once. I don't know if it's possible or if there's a mod out there that does it. It's not a game I've spent a lot of time playing, so I'm completely unfamiliar with that. But I was impressed by this. Looked like something where you'd had a team who had rehearsed the character movements and knew exactly what to do uh, to play out the scenes. So I thought, this is really good, and I thought I'm going to share it with you guys. So what did you think?
Want me to go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, as I understand it, it was released in September 2015.
Oh, I said relatively recent. I guess I was wrong.
Well, it's 10 years ago, yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's been made using this creation kit and the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. And as you say, written, reusing and editing dialogue, sounds, and also music from the game. And the description states, thank goodness, that the mercenary, drunk, thief, and merchant characters, which I understand are NPCs, come together over a campfire and talk about their usual daily routines. Well, it kind of starts with this nice warm color filter over a forest scene, albeit I think with a little bit of a repetitive and irritating musical soundscape. But the first thing that struck me was that opening scene is quite at odds with the words that are being spoken by the characters, because they're discussing how cold the day is, and you're looking at a pine forest with a warm filtered glow over it. And then you can hear the wind howling and these leaves from God knows where blowing around. Yeah, it seems a little bit, what's the word? not the words, what you see and what they say don't quite match. I think that's
Schizophrenic.
something like that. Yeah. Certainly had me thinking. Anyway, that was the first. So that blew me a little bit on the first sort of intro to it. But then it quickly settles on these travelers, the Nords, settling into a cave for the night, presumably, where they continue to claim how cold it is whilst appearing to wear very little, just a bit of an animal skin around the shoulder. So that again was like, oh, really? That's kind of interesting. Anyway, things then start to settle down a bit, and the campfire gets going, and more travelers join for a warm and some food, presumably. There's a discussion going on, but it's strange. It's a real strange discussion. It feels like there are at least, excuse me, two separate conversations taking place simultaneously, at least. One seems to be about a person being tracked, and another seems to be about some aspect of trade that's going on. And then a little bit later on, there's another story being told, and it's kind of like a story about someone that has a secret and some sort of odd relationship with kind of wizardry, and all these things are kind of mixed together in this odd kind of social banter that's taking place between these characters around this campfire. Where they're, when you sort of evaluate it, you kind of think, well, who are they talking to? Because I don't think really they don't appear to be talking to each other, or at least if they are, they're not really listening to each other or conversing. And actually, then it made me think, well, you know what? Isn't that like any other normal dysfunctional kind of group, or group of mates, or even a family where they're just talking at each other and they're not really conversing. It's just banter.
So Phil, that Minecraft movie. Sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah, well, exactly. Okay, so that bit aside, which, I was first of all thinking, well, I don't get what this is. And then I just sort of thought about it a little bit more, and I think, yeah, actually, I do get what it is. These voices have real kind of cadence, even if it's not at all clear what exactly it is they're talking about to each other, or who cares most about what aspect of the discussion. And then, of course, it kind of hits you that these are just voices from the game having been chopped up and stitched together. And maybe there's a bit of thematic way that's been done. But I think actually there's not a lot of great attention to detail in the way that a conversation might unfold, in the way that it's been stitched together, which is an interesting strategy, actually. There's a lot of references to things that are clearly in-game things, meaning basically that anybody like me or anybody else that doesn't know a thing about the game will never understand what's going on. There's certainly no attempt to explain any of that in-game stuff. Well, of course, the voice acting is well done. It's from the game. Frankly, that's probably, and well, it's one of the most interesting aspects of it. The fact that these voices do carry it, even if you can't follow what the conversation is. I suppose really, had this have been made in the days of ElevenLabs, in the last couple of years, you'd probably have heard those voices actually probably engaged in a bit more of a conversation, because if permission were possible, there might have been more emphasis on an actual script that tells something that's more conversational between, something with a narrative arc that takes place between the characters, rather than this kind of random set of stuff that's jammed together. However, by the end, I'm kind of curious enough to want to know more about the characters and what their roles are. Not really any clearer about who these folks are as individuals, or indeed what they do in the original game. But I guess an interesting point is because if you take the voice acting away from the plot of the game, does it still have an association to any particular story? And I think what you're seeing here is maybe not. um, and are these main characters in the game or are they just NPCs? Was another question that I sort of asked myself. And I don't really know, but I would guess that they're probably not main characters. And if it had been made with main characters, would there have been a stronger narrative arc? But again, I don't know enough about the game to sort of comment on that. My guess is there probably might have been more of a narrative had it followed one of the characters, a little bit like, you know, the Cyberpunk 2077 V character that we reviewed a few months back. That followed a particular character through a sort of a gameplay version of it. Would that have worked any better? I don't know. I think the reason this worked was because it's evidently so dysfunctional in the way that these characters interacted. And in the end, that is its charm. It's not that it makes sense, because it doesn't. It's not that they are interacting, because they're not. They're just folks sitting there just talking away at people, not conversing with them. And that's what I really liked about it. So yeah, good choice.
Yeah, I think I don't know much about this game at all. I've never played it, so I don't know if these are main characters or not. But yeah, you think if one were setting about with this approach to repurpose lines of dialogue, if you pick a main character, then obviously there's going to be a lot more lines of dialogue to pick, you know, like Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. Um, whereas most of the NPCs have significantly fewer lines. Yeah, I think I kept hoping for and hanging on for something narrative to take root. You know, I didn't read the description before watching, so there was this sense of kind of a chaoticness to the talking, and I thought, well, is this somebody kind of you know, if you isolate some of the conversations in some of Tarantino's movies between his characters as they're just sitting around talking about how you say Big Mac in France, or talking about a Madonna song or whatever, and you would think, this just doesn't make it, what's this have to do with anything? It doesn't make any sense. But the thing is that he's using that context of a ridiculous conversation between a bunch of guys to help you learn more about the characters, like who they are. It's very indirect, and some people really find it annoying. But I think it works. It can work. And so I was kind of trying to lift that out of this, and just wasn't finding anything to grasp. So then I thought, well, maybe then just eventually this is going to, you know, somehow coalesce into, like you mentioned, Tracy, about, you know, something narrative wise. And yeah, it just never did. Then I read the description and it's like, oh, okay. You know, doing the recontextualizing existing lines is difficult. It's difficult to do it at all, but it's really difficult to do it well. And I think to be able to stitch together convincing narrative, you have to have a lot of lines available. A lot. I think a perfect example of this would be, well, I can think of two examples, but one stronger than the other. The Wacky Wild West.
Oh, yes, the mod.
Red Dead Redemption 2, right? All of Arthur's lines in that were pulled from Arthur's database of, I don't know, 100,000 lines or something ridiculous. I mean, just a huge number. And they only picked a few dozen throughout the whole film. And then that, you know, that film was the chaos of a dream world, so it didn't really have to make a whole lot of sense. But we did notice that the lines really seemed to line up well with the situation. But he had a huge selection of lines to choose from when making that. Much better example would be, oh man, I'm blanking on something about ridiculous ties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Half-Life one, where it's all that dialogue of all those scientists and stuff, and there are hundreds of lines in there, and he repurposed those into a very, very discernible narrative. So I don't know how to compare this in terms of what volume of lines. Is it that he didn't have very many lines to choose from, or he's just not? This just isn't this filmmaker's particular gift. You know, I mean, it's one thing to have the lines, but then to be able to stitch them together, that's not easy to do. It's hard enough to write something, you know, but to actually try to piece together something from only pieces of someone else's writings, man, oh man, that's a gargantuan task. So, anyway, I spent the whole 15 minutes being confused, like trying to figure out what is this supposed to be. And that's a little frustrating. 14 minutes is a long time for essentially what is mostly a campfire conversation that is completely senseless. That's a long time for that. You know, that's a 3-minute joke. Stretched out to 14. So I found my patience tried by it. Now, stuff I was impressed by and admired. The lip sync's fantastic. How'd they do that? You know, I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but that's what I found myself asking is, wow, that's pretty good. And especially for a 10-year-old video and a game. It's not Blender. It's not iClone. That's in game. And it's real. Like, it's not faked. It's the real lip sync. So having never played the game, I don't know. I guess if you encounter these NPCs in the game, when they speak to you, do they lip sync like that? It's pretty impressive. It's better than GTA's was. For definitely better than GTA 4. GTA 5, the main characters, they have enough bone structure to where their mouth moves very convincingly and stuff. And these were pretty good for its age, you know? So that was neat to see. I think the mod that probably played the biggest role in this, because I later looked up what these mods were that are mentioned in the description, and there's one that he mentions called Director's Tools, and that's one that's over on Nexus Mods, which is a great site for mods for all these things. And the description of that mod says, this mod allows you to play various animations by players, characters, and NPCs, cast plenty of effect shaders and visual effects on them, apply various post-processing effects, change interior fog or exterior weather. So that's an access to a lot of control of you know, elements of the game. So I think that probably played a huge role here. I found the let's say the lighting and atmospherics a little bit confusing too, Tracy. I wasn't, when I watched it, I wasn't able to pinpoint what felt wrong, like you zoned right in on there with the color of the warmth and all that. I just knew that it felt weird, that it felt wrong. Once it settled into the snow around the campfire scene, it seemed like, okay, this seems to make a little more sense.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the lighting and all the snow going on and all that is just, it was pleasant to look at. And again, it was all a nice setting for what I was kept looking for and reaching for, hoping would either become an outright comedy or some kind of a narrative that made sense. And it didn't really ever land on 2 feet on either of those things, like at all, really. And then later when I read the description about how it's pieced together again, that made a little bit more sense. There's really not too many things you can do there, really. I think the only way around that, if let's say that this was the best use of those lines possible, then the way around that is to not rely on the lines so much. You know, maybe have a little bit of physical comedy or action, and you select even fewer lines to use, but you could, you know, you can let some nonverbal stuff happen that could actually build a narrative out of, because there's a decent amount of words and lines going on here.
It's continuous, isn't it? There's no
But
breaks.
it seems like it was just, there was never a gap, never a break. It was just, let's just have this line after this line after this line. It's like, you know, if you pulled some of those out and kind of wove a thread there, it would have been possible to do. So,
You know, the one that we looked at some time ago now that did that really well was the is it AFK, the Talkie Orcs and all that? And they also did the lift scene, didn't they, with the Star Wars?
Yeah, they do lots of Star Wars.
Yeah, they were very good picking out lines and then just limited motion to sort of carry an interaction between the characters.
yeah, these games that have so much dialogue in them, I feel like that they're ripe for that type of, what would you call it, remix machinima? You know, for dialogue. I've always felt like the Mass Effect series, no one's ever really done that to great effect, and there's just so many lines of dialogue, and the voice actors are really good. And I don't know if the modding tools are there to support fully doing it, but even if you were just capturing actual lines of dialogue from the game and stitching them together, you could do that. Yeah, it just seems like, of course, I think of it in terms of comedy. There's all kinds of comedy that could be made from that. But yeah, games that have lots of dialogue are really interesting for that.
Yeah. And with Mass Effect, you got 3 games with a consistent cast throughout, so that's a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
Even one of those games has a lot in it, so all 3 you could do something with.
Yeah. And if you got really clever, you could also, you got the ability to change the look of the captain character, so you could actually do multiple passes with it. I mean, it'd be very labor intensive to do for sure, but yeah, games like that, when I'm sure Dragon Age is probably the same way. It probably has a similar dialogue system. Any of those modern BioWare titles would be good for that. So anyway, yeah, I didn't know that Skyrim, that you could even do NPC control on this level. It's impressive. It's like a toolkit that I wish was available for RDR2, you know?
Yeah.
I would just love that. There's nothing like this for RDR2, so you know, that's impressive to see. It just didn't quite land the way that it could have, but I mean, you found Skyrim Machinima. We weren't sure if there's anything out there, so that's great.
Oh, there's a lot out there. This is the one that caught my eye.
Okay.
I think it's something to do with the cinematic nature of it and things like that.
Sure.
But at the beginning, I said it was a fairly recent one. Then Tracy said, no, it's actually 9 years old. That got me thinking, though, that that's quite early in the game's life.
Yeah.
So those mods used to make it are obviously going to have evolved since then. So they're getting more powerful now.
Oh, that's true. The description I'm reading is from today of what that mod does. Maybe it was different back then and even more primitive or something. So yeah.
So maybe we should look at some more recent Skyrim machinima to see what people are doing with that.
Within the last 5 years, Damien.
Well, within the last 8 years. We can narrow it down 1 year.
Yeah. Brilliant.
All right, so I think that...
Cool. No, I was going to say I wasn't as disappointed with it in the end. Because I put a slightly different lens to it, which is that actually folks around campfires, I've sat around campfires where nobody's actually talking to anybody. They're just yabbering to themselves, and it's kind of like normal. And I think
Yeah.
if you look at it in that light, it kind of does work.
Hmm.
But I prefer a story personally.
Well, fair enough.
Skyrim, is that a Bethesda game?
Yeah.
It is. I wonder if there's any if any of the modding tools for those games, if they're at all like cross-platform, cross-game at all, you know? Like, wouldn't it be cool if there was tools like that were NPC control like this for like Starfield, for example,
Yeah.
or even Fallout? That would be so amazing. I know that there's lots of mods for all those games, but
Yeah, I need to see what's going on with Starfield because I haven't played it for a while. It'd be interesting to see, if something like that exists because it'd be interesting to see what machinima is being made with it. That doesn't mean I'm going to choose a Starfield for next month though. But maybe
there is somebody out there who has been making a camera tool, and they've done it for like over a dozen games.
Yeah, didn't that come up when we did that cyberpunk music video?
It may be the same one, but this is one that I stumbled on just a few days ago, but I didn't have enough time to get together all the info on it for our news episode this month. But I'll definitely be reporting on it next month, and I may even try some of them out. But I mean, he's got a full cinematic camera tool for Cyberpunk, for Red Dead Redemption 2. I think he skipped GTA because GTA already has the director mode. What do you need it for? And Starfield was another one. So this is all the same, and it's the same person, the same tool, but he's adapted it to basically work alongside the executable for all these different games. And supposedly it has like full free camera control, not just photo. A lot of photo mode in these games. The photo mode freezes time,
right?
And this supposedly gets around that somehow. So I literally just discovered it a couple days ago. I haven't got to play with it yet, but I'll report back on that. But
sounds really interesting.
That could be really promising. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. I think that wraps up things for this week. So thank you to my co-hosts Tracy and Phil. If you've got any thoughts about Skyrim Machinima or this film or us, please send us an email at talkingcompletemachinima.com, and you can check out our website and blog at completemachinima.com. But that's it for now, and we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.